Hello everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman and this is your look at the astrology for December 22nd through 28th, 2025. So we are in the last full week of the year. How has 2025 been for you? I know it's certainly been kind of an interesting year, just put it that way. But for those that are watching live, do say hello. It's always fun to see where everybody is watching from. And for those that don't know who I am, again, my name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located here in the rolling hills of Central Maryland. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. So I think I'm coming down with the cold, so in case my voice is a little scratchy, that is why. Maybe it's also because that I spoke for 3.5 hours for my year end, or rather my year look ahead. I did the astrology of 2026 webinar just this past Saturday on the 20th of December. Don't worry if you did not watch it, you were not available, you can still watch the replay. So it's an overview, and that overview is not 3 hours, but it's an overview. And then I look at let's say, what are the bigger themes of the year? And for me as an astrologer, I've said this a few times even to you all, like when I sit down and I look at the year ahead, I'm looking to Saturn, and I'm primarily looking to Saturn. I'm primarily looking at the eclipses, because that is telling me the structure of time. It's telling me the flavor of time, and where, in the case of, let's say, 2026, because Saturn will go into Aries on February 13th, where are our priorities shifting for the coming year? Because Saturn is always our priorities. And if you're like me, you sort of want to have a concrete, as much as anybody can, a concrete idea of where's my focus for the coming year. You need to look at Saturn. Saturn sets the time. The eclipses really show us where things are going to move in our lives, and particularly when they are likely going to move. And in 2026, like Saturn changing signs, we do have the lunar nodes changing signs, and we're going to start to have eclipses in Aquarius and Leo. So I talked all about that. Maybe, again, that's why my voice is a little scratchy in my Astrology of 2026 webinar. It even includes a sign-by-sign guide, so you can learn what it means for your sun and your rising sign. So I know we have a holiday this week for those that celebrate Christmas, so it's a little bit of a quiet week. It's actually a quiet week with the astrology. We had the new moon just this past 19th of December, which means we'll have a full moon as we go into the new year. So really our big aspects are, it's the solstice, or at least yesterday was the solstice. And every year the sun, I realize we're an international audience. Some of us are in the northern hemisphere like me. Some of us are in the southern hemisphere where it is the first of summer. For me, it is the first of winter. And the solstice marks the point, at least from in the northern hemisphere, when the sun reaches its sort of lowest point. And ever since we had the summer solstice back, I think it was June 20th or 21st, we have been having less and less and less sunlight. That is both an astronomical reality, but I mean that in terms of a symbology, where we have, especially as we go through the zodiac signs from that period, we are in a way going into the descent so that we can welcome the light with the solstice, and now we can have the ascent of the light. When we get to Capricorn season, the sun, the winter solstice or the solstice is the arrival of the sun in Capricorn. We've reached nearly the end of the zodiac. So for those that don't know, there are 12 signs of the zodiac. They act like a ladder or a stage. And each month, the zodiac months do not line up with our calendar months, but they act as symbolic months for us to work through. Life is meant to be discovered. That's why when we get to Sagittarius season, we step into a sign that is outside of us. We're asking questions, asking big existential questions. Maybe we're focusing on education or travel. But ultimately, Sagittarius is a sign that's trying to get us to look beyond ourselves and perhaps even towards the stars. And we had that Sagittarius new moon last week. That new moon was at the very end of the sign and very close to what's called the galactic center. This lunar month, and so a lunar month takes 4 weeks, it will take us all the way to probably around the 20th of January. I don't know when that next new moon is. But it says that this is a lunar month because the lunar month, or rather the new moon, was square Saturn and Neptune, where we're really seeing the energies of Saturn and by extension Neptune built into our experiences over the next 4 weeks. I was like wondering how I was going to talk about this because I had something very strange and a little alarming happen to me, which I'm sort of saying this because of that Neptune square, and I was born with Neptune rising, so I know all about Neptune. I got a podcast request, interview request, which is not unusual. Like I get requests all the time, and some of you, perhaps we've even done a podcast together. This was a request that perhaps was somebody with a little bit more higher profile, and I agreed to it. And long story short, there weren't any red flags. And then I did like a tech call to like set up things. And they were scammers. This is the part that makes me think of Neptune, because Neptune can be illusions and scams, and they were scammers, and they took control of my Empowering Astrology Facebook account. I have 42,000 followers, and by an actual miracle, it took me two weeks to really figure out what the scam was. Like I was like, there has to be something that's not right, and I realized that they had full control over my account. My business account. Then I was able to log in through my Instagram and able to delete the scammers. So stay vigilant out there, people, because tis the season for scams. Long story short, I do have full control back of my Facebook account. I was like, do I have to tell everybody that we need to move to another Facebook account, or like maybe can't do this on Facebook Live anymore? We have to do this on YouTube. I was like trying to figure out, but never mind. That's a very short story because it was literally me having a heart attack on Friday, the day of the new moon, and I like, I'm not saying this lightly. I legitimately think it's a miracle, because if I follow the steps of how I was able to get back in, I was like, how would I have figured that out? Anyway, so long story short, but hopefully that won't happen to you. But we do have strong energies of Saturn and Neptune over the next 4 weeks. And, it's Capricorn season. So I know that we're still 1 foot in the Sagittarius solar month, or lunar month, and also that Sagittarius lunar month that connects us to the energies of eclipses. And, that said, happy birthday, Capricorn. The sun, when we had the solstice, the sun is now in Capricorn. I can't even believe that it's the last week of the year, and yet here we are. And the sun in Capricorn means that we've entered a sign that is ruled by Saturn. There's that planet again, perhaps at this point how much I love Saturn. I love, air quotes, love Saturn. I have a healthy respect for Saturn. But that said, when we arrive in Capricorn season, we've entered into the sign of matter and the material world. We are physical beings. We have physical lives. We have time. We have karma. We have aging. We're getting older. We have responsibilities. We need maturity. We need discernment, hopefully. And we all have our own different relationships with those statements. And I even wrote about this in my newsletter, but Capricorn, one of the bywords for Capricorn, and one of the bywords for Saturn, its ruler, is commitment. And commitment isn't just something that we do. Commitment is an energy. So when we get to Capricorn season, it's a time to reevaluate our commitments to ourselves, our commitments to our lives, what we are building, what we are becoming. And it's no coincidence that this is the time of year where we assess. We are like, what do I want my word to be for the coming year? Or what resolutions do I want to make? Or how do I want to be a better person? in 2026, whatever it is that is sort of beginning to circle your inner thoughts and your reflections. And so that's the energy of Capricorn and Saturn. And the zodiac is a wheel, and each year is like another ring, just like Saturn has rings as well, the rings of time. So Capricorn, it's a time for us to also really work towards our bigger goals, because there is a duality to every sign of the zodiac. As much as Capricorn can be success and achievement, but it's also a very heavy sign. It's ruled by Saturn. Again, time, karma, and aging. So we have to find the balance between our duties and our responsibilities, being here in a physical world and all that entails, versus that like heaviness of Capricorn, or it's this mentality of like, you didn't work hard enough, you didn't do it perfect. It's like Virgo on steroids. And that energy, it's just going to, grind out the pleasure of life and the spark of life. So we need Capricorn to be a support and a structure for our life, and not just that heavy energy of like, you didn't do good enough this year, we didn't work hard enough, because then it's just suffering. So I love Capricorn, and Capricorn gets things done, and Capricorn asks all of us to be a boss over the next 4 weeks, to be the boss of our life, or be the boss of a situation that maybe we haven't been the boss of. Things have been kind of not put in order. So that's one of the ways in which we can look at this season. Now, this Capricorn season, the energy of the sign is being pointed towards Pisces. Why? Because Saturn, Capricorn's ruling planet, is still in Pisces. In fact, as I record this, and certainly this will be the case for the next 7 weeks, Saturn is coming to the end of its time in Capricorn in Pisces, and will not return to Pisces for another 30 years. And this is an energy, this is a story that has been with us since March of 2023. That was the month that Saturn went into Pisces, and as you heard me say in the introduction, Saturn is our priorities. So our priorities for the last 2.5, almost 3 years, have been Pisces. On paper, it doesn't seem like Pisces and Capricorn have a lot in common. Capricorn is matter in the material world. Pisces is what's beyond this world. Pisces is the ethereal, the emotional, the spiritual, the esoteric, the mystical. And Capricorn is, in Saturn, is also teeth and bones and time and, again, karma and aging. So to prioritize Pisces means to prioritize a sign that is by its very nature very existential. Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac. Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac, the last sign. And so over the last 2.5, 3 years, we've come to the end of the zodiac. And I mean that metaphorically, of course, there's a literal quality to that, but it means that we have all reached the end of something. It could be a very, part of our life, a chapter of our life. It could be even, wanting to make some positive changes in your life. You sort of reach the end of an older version of you. When Saturn crosses from Pisces into Aries, which it will on February 13th, it symbolically goes from the last breath of life, Pisces, to the first breath of life, Aries. Aries is new beginnings, it's renewal, it's action. And perhaps things have been a little bit ethereal or a little bit liminal over the past 2.5 and 3 years. We did, just as an aside, we had a preview of Saturn and Aries when Saturn went into Aries. I think it was the 24th of May of this year. So what is that, 6, 7 months ago? Yeah, 6, 7 months ago. And that was trying to give us some clues to what these new priorities and this new focus is going to be in 2025. We actually had some other planets change signs this summer. I say summer because I'm here in the Northern Hemisphere. Of course, it might be winter for you in the Southern Hemisphere. But June and July and August were meant to be a time where new stories were beginning to come into your life, even if it's quiet, even if it's the seeds of something. And then we return to those stories or those seeds, so to speak, when we get into 2026. So Saturn, as it comes to the end of Pisces, I don't think it gets to 29 degrees until the end of January. You may find that throughout the next 4 weeks and even into Aquarius season, that we are feeling a sense of resolution, or maybe some story that's been with us is naturally coming to an end. Maybe we're seeing the efforts of the lessons that we've been learning while Saturn was in Pisces. Maybe we're dodging scammers. I'm joking. For me, I really think of, there's just been a lot of stuff in my life since 2023. As you know, I've moved. My father's been sick, and that's just only a part of it. And so it's been a big climb. Saturn's always the big climb, so to speak, over the past few years. So I want you all to, and I've said this before in previous videos, to be in listening, to listen for what is Saturn saying to you about this whole chapter of Saturn in Pisces as we get to the end of its time in Pisces. Because again, it's not going to come back for another 30 years. Neptune, which I referenced a few moments ago, it's coming to the end of Pisces as well. And at the end of January, I think it's to 26, it's going to go into Aries. Apart from a preview in 2025, it has not been in Aries since the 1860s and 70s. Yes, you heard me correctly. So even as Saturn gets to the end of Pisces over the next 6-7 weeks from now, Neptune has 4 more weeks in Pisces, and Neptune will not return to Pisces in our lifetime. So it's an interesting Capricorn season, because it really puts the focus on Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces. Whereas Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023, Neptune has been in Pisces since February of 2012. That's just such a long time. So, we're all different people, and Neptune is not concrete. It's very different than Saturn, but Neptune represents our spiritual work. So whatever is happening, and we talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago, Neptune's time for Pisces for you is very subtle. You have to really listen and feel for that thread of what Neptune and Pisces has meant for you since 2012. But something is beginning to wrap up. Again, listen for it, feel for it, because 2026, although it might be until February or later, is really the beginning of the year. It's not January. Calendar-wise, January is the beginning of the year. Astrologically, February is the start point of something. We have Saturn in Pisces on the 13th. We have a solar eclipse in Aquarius on the 17th. That's a really powerful solar eclipse, because it's almost exactly square Uranus. That's another conversation for another time. And of course, then we'll get into March, and that will be the start of the astrological year when the sun goes into Aries. But for me as an astrologer, I'm really circling that February in general, because it's a big month for pivot points and changes. So listen for Saturn, listen for Neptune, and even this week as Venus reaches the end of Sagittarius, it makes its final square to Neptune in our lifetime in Pisces. And Venus square Neptune, it can be alluring, it can be beautiful, it can be very surface, meaning it's all about how things look on the exterior, but really to understand what is beneath, or even to see the value of something that we're not seeing. Ultimately, whenever Neptune is involved, we have to transcend the lower into higher. Hopefully that makes sense. So if we are only seeing the surface of something, that could be to a fault, it could be an illusion. How do we transcend that illusion so that we can see it from the higher vantage point and perspective? The main aspect this week, apart from the fact that it's now Capricorn season, is that Venus will go into Capricorn on the 24th. So Venus goes into Capricorn. It begins to pick up the energies of Capricorn season, pick up the energies of Saturn and Neptune. In Capricorn, its rulers. And Venus is what we love, it's what we value, it's a relational planet. It's going into Capricorn, which is what it's an earth sign. And so I've just noticed that in general, Venus is trying to make us very security conscious when it's in Capricorn. It's not just about experiencing life and enjoying life, as typically Venus is in its home sign of Taurus. It's about really strategizing and planning for the future, typically in terms of money and resources. You have your 401k, or you have your, of course we should be so lucky. We don't always have those resources. It is to, at least to the best of our ability, to really take the steps that we can when Venus is in Capricorn to create more stability and security for ourselves, to plan for the future, to have a clear idea of what is of value for you and what is not of value for you. Again, should we be so lucky? I've seen Venus in Capricorn be very frugal because it's really trying to spend the least amount, or to use the least amount, in order to create stability and security for the future. Everything in balance, of course. So, we're looking at our bank accounts for the next 4 weeks. We're planning for the future. We're thinking about how to strategize and increase the resources that we have access to. Again, should we be so lucky? So that's what I got for this week. I know that it's a holiday week, and for those that celebrate the holiday, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And we've got one more video left for 2025 as we cross over into 2026. So having said all that, I will say, and this will end on the 26th, I am doing a special for consultation. So if you use the code HOLIDAY26 when you go to my website, empoweringastrology.com, and you book a consultation with me, I think at this point have availability at the beginning of January. So you can book a consultation with me, empoweringastrology.com. I think it's /booking is the fast way to get there. And you can use the code HOLIDAY25. Oh shoot, it's in the link in the show notes. So there you go. Let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs. I'm for those that are watching, definitely it was a very dramatic week for me because I almost lost control of my Facebook account with all 42,000 followers because of a scammer. So again, stay vigilant out there. Anyway, so let's start with Aries. Aries, so Mars is your planet, and as of last week, Mars is in Capricorn. So for the next 5 weeks, this takes you into the end of January. I think it's like the 26th of January. I'm not sure. Mars is in a sign where it's got the hustle on. It's about thinking about the future. It's about working. It's about your professional life. It's your duties and responsibilities. And if you're really feeling the motivation to focus on your professional life, then that is possibly why. It is a great time to launch something in the world, especially after the Capricorn moon in January. It is a great time to get new work. So use this to your advantage, especially as we get past the holidays and get into the new year. So I've said this a few times already, but you are coming to the end of a great cycle because Saturn, which has been in your 12th since March of 2023, this has been a time over the past few years to really release, to let go, to shed, to make space. In some cases, to really physically let things go, to clean things out of your house, because when Saturn goes back into Aries on February 13th, it's the start of a new cycle of your life. Do what you need to do, especially over the last sort of week of the year, to clean things out and to prepare, because the basic premise is that when Saturn crosses into Aries in February 13th of 2026, it's like what you bring with you, you're bringing it with you to the next 30 years. I know that's a big statement, I want to say that, and for you not to have any anxiety, Aries. It's just for you to be very conscientious about the things that you are still carrying. If that's physical, if that's symbolic, because you don't want to bring it with you when Saturn is in Aries. That said, it's been, you're coming to the end of a very spiritual and esoteric time of your life. So Saturn may be giving you feedback over the next 7 weeks. It might be showing you the answers to deeper existential questions, matters of faith, matter of truth and meaning. But this again is all to prepare you for that next big chapter when Saturn goes into Aries. Capricorn season for you, much like where Mars is at the moment, it is the time to focus on your professional life and your ambitions. You just get an extra boost this Capricorn season because Mars is in Capricorn as well. Oh, and I will add that Venus is going to go into Capricorn. It will go into Capricorn on the 24th. Venus is a relationship planet. So for those that are in partnership, maybe with Venus and Capricorn for the next 4 weeks into January, it's to get very clear about what's going on between you and another person. Even if you are not in a relationship, Capricorn and by extension Saturn is very much focused towards the future and planning and making sure that those people who are in your life, even if they are not romantic, are actually supporting your life. Capricorn, so Venus is your planet and it's coming to the end of its time in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, I don't know why it's hard to speak. Sagittarius is something called your 8th sign, and the past 4 weeks have been very internal, perhaps even some soul searching as well, and it's been a time to really look within. That said, as Venus leaves Sagittarius for Capricorn on the 24th, it's a shift of vibes. Because when Venus goes into Capricorn, it goes into a fellow earth sign. Earth is concrete, earth is structural, earth is about our material world, just like you, Taurus. But this is a time for Venus into January to get very clear about what it believes in, what it stands for. It could be investing in your education. It could be having a strong sense of right and wrong. But the basic premise is that your time of Venus and Capricorn is to build upon the soul searching that you were doing over the last 4 weeks. Before Venus can get into Capricorn, it does make a square to Neptune. That can bring up a lot of murky feelings, maybe even feelings about the future. Do I have faith? Where am I going? But it's to really push through and to transcend whatever that you need to transcend, because then that will take you into Venus in Capricorn. Then there's Mars. Mars is a relationship planet for you, but that said, Mars is in your 9th. It'll be in the same place as Venus. And this is also a place that talks about travel and exploration. And perhaps over the next 4 to 6 weeks, you've got trips planned, you're going long distance travel, you want to see the world, or maybe you want to bring the world back home to you. Gemini, so Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is coming to the end of its time in Capricorn. In fact, Mercury will go into it's in Sagittarius. Mercury will go into Capricorn on New Year's Day, so January 1st. And for you, Capricorn is a relationship sign. It's been about other people, both partnerships, romantic partnerships for whom that's actually relevant, but also a time to connect and relate and socialize with people. With Venus going to Capricorn, with Mercury going into Capricorn at the beginning of the new year, you will switch into a sign that is a little bit more soul searching, a little bit going within. But that said, that's where the sun is right now. And Capricorn season always each year is a time for you to do that inner work, to sit and feel something, to face yourself, because this is the time, for you at least, that this is where you do that psychological work, or that internal spiritual work. For some Geminis, this is a time to focus on money matters, especially taxes, benefits, spending, and that is a way for you to create stability and security in your life. That said, Mars is also in what's called your 8th sign of Capricorn. So you're starting to get, especially when Venus gets there on the 24th, a lot of stuff going on in the 8th. So sit with what are the emotions and feelings that are coming up for you as you go through the end of the year and into the beginning of January. Are they complicated emotions? Are they emotions that are stuck in the past or past experiences? I realize the holidays can be very difficult for people, and this is a time to open up and be vulnerable, to connect to those that you trust, and to have some emotional support during this time. Mars is giving you the courage and bravery to open up, to talk about something. If you are also feeling emotions and you have no idea where they're coming from, it's because they are bubbling up from the unconscious. So the 8th is sometimes where we have to really do that work on the unconscious. That said, we are in that last 7 or so weeks of Saturn's time in Pisces, and I was saying this in the introduction. It's to listen for Saturn's time in your career sign, because you're coming to the end of an almost 3-year chapter, a major chapter in your life where for some of you, you've had to answer to Saturn and say, what do I want to be when I grow up, so to speak. This has brought changes in your professional life. This has set a higher bar for you. You have been working to achieve. Maybe you've made a job change. But as you hit that last 6-7 weeks of Saturn and Pisces, listen for what this time has built, who you have become through this time, because Saturn also can reward our hard work as well. Cancer. So the moon is your planet. So we just had that new moon on the 19th. And so the lunar light is beginning to grow all week long. As we start the week, we are in an Aquarius moon. I think by now the moon's in Aquarius, and Aquarius is something called your 8th sign. So it is a week that starts off with a little bit more of a deeper emotional note. The moon doesn't get into Aquarius, I think, until the morning of the 25th or the 24th, I can't remember. And then you shift into Pisces by the 25th, and Pisces is what's called your 9th sign. The moon throughout the 25th, 26th, and 7th is in the same space as Saturn. And this is to bring us back to a much larger story that we have talked about off and on over the last 2.5 to almost 3 years. Saturn has been in your 9th since March of 2023. And during that time, Saturn is always like, what's your priority? This is where you need to do your focus. Saturn's usually like, this is your priority. And the 9th is a little bit of a harder place to, can't touch. The 9th is what we believe in and what we stand for. And it's hard, to touch that because it's so subjective. It's so personal to your own life. And the past 2 years have been trying to get you to get clearer and clearer to, this question, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? Questions. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? And what do you think is true? And maybe you've tried to answer that question through college or university or specialized study. Maybe you've tried to answer that question through travel and seeing the world. Maybe you've tried to answer that question through philosophy and different teachings and different points of view, or perhaps even different ideologies. When Saturn gets to the end of Pisces, roughly, it is to commit to something, or to set a boundary, or even to say no to something. But that is the time, and for some, Saturn is always about making something concrete. And then the 9th, maybe, it's a degree. You have the actual title the letters after your name, or maybe it's something else. But the next 6-7 weeks are about making something concrete after all this big philosophical work over the last 2 to 3 years. That said, Saturn is in Capricorn. Capricorn is not Saturn, Mars is in Capricorn. Got Saturn and Capricorn in the brain. Mars is in Capricorn. Capricorn is a relationship sign. It's also Capricorn season. So just as in general, this is the time of year that's meant to focus on other people, whether that's a partnership, whether that's relationships and socialization as a whole. It's just this year, Mars is there. Mars is not typically in this part of the sky. Mars has its own cycle compared to the sun, the moon, etc. So Mars might, for some Cancers, push a relationship issue to the forefront. Mars is not the diplomat, and typically when Mars is in a relationship sign, the other person has the power, so to speak. We're a little bit more on the defenses. For some people, Mars in the 7th is a time to really go after what you want, to make that connection, to have that conversation with a partner about something that's really important to you, a need, a want, for an example. But it's typically not a very quiet time when Mars is in the relationship side. Now, Venus will also join this space. You're going to have the Sun, you're going to have Mars, and then Venus after the 24th will be in this space as well. So relationships will be a focal point as you go into the new year. And then we have, again, going back to Saturn for a moment, these bigger questions about what do I want? Where am I going? What do I believe in? And if this is connected to a relationship, making sure that you and another person are seeing the eye to eye on some sort of an issue. Leo, so the sun is your planet, and each time this year the sun goes into Capricorn. Capricorn is something called your I just totally blanked. Capricorn is something called your sixth sign. And the sixth sign is the time for you to, in a way, get a jump on the sort of things that we typically focus on this time of year. Projects, work, looking at our diet, our fitness, our nutrition, putting things in order, having the intentions to do things differently as you go into the year. Because ultimately, the six is operations. And so this is your time when the sun shines on operations and you're looking at how things are flowing or not flowing and perhaps wanting to make some changes. Enter Mars, or that happened last week, but Mars is going to be in your six for the next 5 weeks. And I think until the 26th of January. And Mars, when it's in the 6th, it's in hustle mode. We got to do things. We got projects. We need to clean out the garage. We need to do all these things. We need to get more exercise. And if you're feeling very restless, Mars needs a job. It can't just sort of sit there and be in your 6. It's going to make you, go a little stir crazy a little bit. So if you're feeling like you need projects or actions, maybe you're using this quiet week to really refocus and think about what are your short-term priorities for the next 5 to 6 weeks. Venus will join this space as well. Venus is what you love, what you value. So, Venus is about putting your heart in something. It's not just doing. And again, as you start the new year, maybe you need that Venus to help really figure out what's a priority and what's not a priority. And ultimately, and I think we talked about this, or maybe I talked about this in my Astrology of 2026 video, it has just been, in general, for Leo over the last 2.5 years, a heavy time because Saturn has been in what's called your 8th. And depending on who you are, depending on your sense of self-awareness and inner work, it's just a time of a lot of heavy lifting with Saturn in the 8th. But it is just 7 more weeks left of Saturn in the 8th, not to return for another 30 years. And just observe what sort of lessons that you've learned. Saturn is always about something coming together and becoming concrete. And you make a commitment to something or you say no to something. It's never black and white. Sorry, it's always black and white. So over the next coming weeks, you might start to see all that inner work come together, or some sort of shift come together, some sort of commitment that you've made to yourself really begin to show itself. But it's going to be very specific for your own life, and it's for you to listen for it. Virgo. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is right now, it's still in Sagittarius, and on the 1st of January, it will go into Capricorn. So in the meantime, the energy of you is pointed towards home and family, roots, foundations. Certainly, it's the time of year for that sort of focus. And, that said, speaking of this time of year, the sun has gone into Capricorn. As of yesterday, it is the solstice, or was the solstice. And the priority is now shifted in your astrology, at least for the short term, towards what's called your fifth. Expressing yourself, your creativity, your talents, your gifts, your abilities, getting back in touch with the things that light you up and give you joy. I know it sounds nice. I mean, you're a Virgo, you're a hard worker, but don't forget to do the things that actually are sustainable, that actually support you, that actually give you fuel. And that's the real, at the heart, what the sun's time in the fifth is meant to be. It's a time for us to get back in touch with our passions. Mars is there. Mars arrived last week. It'll be there for 5 more weeks. Venus will get there on the 24th. So you're going to have the sun, Mars, and Venus at least into the new year. So take advantage of this, Virgo. It's been a lot of work over the past couple of years. You've had Saturn in your relationship sign since March of 2023. You've had eclipses in your sign. You had the solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st of this year. And it's just a lot has been shifting, and maybe you've just been a little bit, as they say, on the back foot, like trying to be on the defensive instead of the offensive. And maybe you could just use some time off. Maybe you can just get back to you and the things that are a priority for you, as opposed to taking care of everybody else. And that's your mantra this season. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is moving from Sagittarius to Capricorn this week. And so for you, Sagittarius has been a place over the last few weeks. It's been a busy time. It's been about connections, voice, communication, perhaps even education, perhaps even travel as well. And when Venus goes into Capricorn on the 24th, for the next 4 weeks, your short-term focus and priority will be home and family. Obviously, home and family mean different things to different people. It could just be that you want to spend some cozy time at home, not talking to anybody, or maybe it's just busy in the sense that you're spending a lot of time with your family. It's probably a busy time because the sun is also in Capricorn, and Venus will be joined by Mars. Mars is a relationship planet, so there's things that perhaps are going on in the household between you and a partner, or you and somebody else. And what I've noticed when Mars goes through the 4th sign is that it's not quiet at home. Usually there are people from out of town, there are projects that you're taking care of, there's construction outside the house, probably not on this week just because it's a holiday, but it's just, Mars is a very restless, active energy. So if you are spending a lot of quiet time at home, God bless, how do you use this Mars? Do you put it towards projects at home? Do you clean things out? Do you make so that your home is a much more comfortable and nicer place? Do you move? Are you planning for a move? So Mars will be here for the next 5 weeks. So that's not, that's not quiet time until after Mars leaves at the end of January. But that said, Venus will get into this space. Venus rules you, and it just will put a lot of focus on home and family for the next 4 weeks at least. Also, because Saturn, try not to sneeze. Saturn is in your 6th. This is also a season for you to focus on projects in the home, cleaning things out, getting things organized. And this is that last big push of Saturn's time in Pisces before it leaves on February 13th. And so I've been saying this to other signs. Listen for Saturn, because Saturn is beginning to give us feedback. It's beginning to show us what we've been making, what we've been doing with our time with Saturn and Pisces, and maybe that's something that we're beginning to see this week and next week as well. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars, as of last week, it's now in Capricorn. And so for the next 5 weeks, you're focused on voice communication, how you think and listen and learn. It might be a busy time between now and the end of January. You may have things to do locally. You might be connecting with people who want to have phone calls or emails or DMs. And Mars is typically very active energy. Of course, it rules your astrology. But through the lens of Capricorn, and Mars loves being in Capricorn, it wants to be very results and goal oriented. So this is a very precise placement for your Mars to be as you start the year. So with that in mind, get very clear about where you're headed, or perhaps where you think you're headed, because, who the heck knows. But where you would like to really structure and focus your time, at least over the next 6 months. It is a busy energy, and this will take you again all the way into the end of January. Now, it is Capricorn season, so this is always the time in general to focus on your voice, writing, speaking, learning, communicating, and also to be more in an authority of what you have to say, so that people believe you. You know what you're talking about, Scorpio. And, in addition to the sun being in Capricorn, and of course the Mars, which we were talking about, Venus will go into Capricorn on the 24th. So Venus is a relationship planet, so it could be a time that's more social between you and other people, certainly people that live closer by as opposed to far, far away. But Venus is just very value conscious. It's in addition to that very precise, precision of Mars and Capricorn, Venus is like, is it worth it? And so as you go into the new year, that might be something that you're just thinking about, is it worth it? Is it worth it for the long term? Is this something I want to invest my time and my energy in? Because ultimately the third, which is Capricorn for you, is about our ability to look at all of our options and hopefully make the best choices possible. So again, is it worth it? You are getting to the end of Saturn's time in stop saying that, Saturn's time in Pisces. And, and I've been saying this to the other signs, it is to begin to listen for what have you been working on, what have you been learning, and perhaps even who have you been becoming with Saturn and Pisces, because Pisces is what's called your 5th sign. And this has been 2.5, almost 3 years of learning to take yourself and take your talents seriously. Sagittarius, so it's no longer your season. I'm so sorry. The sun has moved into what's called your 2nd sign of money, income, material stability, and security. Basic premise is this: whether you are a Sagittarius sun or you are Sagittarius rising, the time that the sun goes into Sagittarius is a time of new beginnings, new initiatives, renewal. And so it begs the question, where are you taking that energy? And what are you focusing it on? Because through the 2nd is where we plant the seeds. We start to get very clear about what's important to us, what's of value to us, what we want to invest in. But of course, on a broader surface level, the next 4 weeks are about your money. The money that you make, the money that you have available to you, your resources, your assets, but also these bigger questions of value and worth, and even self-worth and value. This time of year always is Capricorn season. It's just you're joined, or rather, the Capricorn sun is joined by Mars. This is not usually this time of year, but Mars is in Capricorn for the next 5 weeks. Mars is about action, drive, and motivation. So Mars is very driven and active towards creating material stability and security for yourself over the next 5-6 weeks. Venus will go into this space and will leave Sagittarius, and it sort of adds to that general vibe of really creating stability and security for yourself as you go into the new year. And all this energy is pointing over towards the family. So we've talked about this, throughout the past couple of years, but you've been in a major chapter, Sagittarius, because Saturn has been in what's called your 4th sign of home and family. So if Saturn is your priority, your long-term priority, then your long-term priority has been about family and home since 2023. Of course, that means different things to different people. I can think of almost like a roster of Sag rising people in my head. I'm Sag rising as well. I've moved in with my aging father who's sick. I have a Sag rising friend who's taking care of her sick parent. Maybe it's something different for you. You've moved, you've put down roots, or maybe Saturn, it's been a little bit more existential. Like, where is home and who is home? Do I want to live here? If I do live here, then how do I make this feel like home? Or maybe it's not physical, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's internal, maybe it's even spiritual as well. And it is to make the connections with people whom we may not have a blood connection to, but may actually feel like home and family. On paper, Sag, obviously we're all different people, but Sag wants to be out there in the world. But this has been a time where you've had to really put down roots and focus on a part of your life that actually supports all that endeavors that you like to travel and explore. But first, at least since 2023, 4, and 5, it's again had to focus on home and family. Yeah, that's it. Capricorn, happy birthday, Capricorn. So as of yesterday, the 21st, the solstice, the sun is now in your sign, or it's in the sign of your rising. So every time the sun gets into Capricorn, we are now coming towards the end of the astrological year. Capricorn is the sign of matter and the material world. It is ruled by Saturn. Saturn says, what are our priorities? What do we need to work on? What do we need to build? It's growth in a very sort of focused, stable, it's maturity. And so these are energies to renew yourself with every time the sun comes back into Capricorn. Of course, it may be your birthday. Happy birthday. You are joined by Mars this year. And as of the 24th of December, you will be joined by Venus as well. When Mars is in your sign, you have energy, you want to do things, you want to go places, you have things to say, you might be a little bit fighty also as well, but in general, Mars is really kicking off this new year for you in Capricorn. So the question is, with the car, the metaphorical car, all gassed up, where are you going, Capricorn? The irony to all this initiative and new beginnings is that the energy of the season, the energy of you, is pointed towards your 3rd. And Saturn, it's been in Pisces since March of 2023, it's coming to the end of Pisces. And Pisces is not about new beginnings. That's the irony. Pisces is about ending. So it can be both. It can be that you feel that things are moving ahead and that there's this new beginning, but it may also mean that you can't quite see where you're going or what these sort of new seeds, so to speak, are going to become. Because on some level, for the next 6-7 weeks, until Saturn really leaves Pisces for good, because it won't be back for another 30 years, that you're beginning to see the end of some lesson or some chapter of your life, something that you needed to learn, but maybe shedding the past, letting something go. That's why I said that irony, because when Saturn gets into Aries on February 13th, like then you have that new beginning. So what I would say is use Mars's time in Capricorn until the end of January to set things in motions, to take the steps that you need to take, but don't be surprised if it's like not until the second half of February that things are really beginning to move. Even though at that point Mars will be into Aquarius. So that said, Mars is in Capricorn. Venus will be in Capricorn this week on the 24th. It will be there for the next 4 weeks. And Venus is what you love, what you value. It's a career planet for you. And it's really giving you that command. So stand in it. But I think with that Saturn in Pisces, it's like something is coming to the end, but also you need to get very clear about what's of value, what's important, what's priority, like a spiritual priority, and to make the choices, the right choices that you need to make, that then set you up for the new beginning in February. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn has got 7 more weeks left in Pisces. I know you might be like ticking off the days, but I've been saying this to varying degrees to the other sign, because even though Saturn is your planet, Saturn is still, teaching you something. You're still coming to the end of a 2.5-year chapter where your priority has been Capricorn. It's not Capricorn. Your priority has been Pisces. I keep saying that. And when your priority is Pisces, it's more existential, it's more spiritual, it's emotional. It's looking at your life through a wider lens, and one that is questioning meaning and purpose. And is something of value and is not something of value. And perhaps the past 2 years have been very financially focused, but ultimately it's to get you to look beyond the material plane. That said, it is Capricorn season, and Capricorn is something called your 12th sign. So in our astrology, we have 12 signs, even though we might be in Aquarius or Aquarius rising. And the 12th sign represents the world beyond this world. Each sign represents a different part of our life, but for you, Capricorn takes you outside this world. It's a time in your personal calendar to rest, to relax, to go within, to ask big questions. And all of this is the preparation for the new beginning to come when the sun goes into Aquarius around the 19th of January, if I'm saying that correctly. So if it's, I know it's a busy time in general, but if this is a more internal or quiet time, or one where you need to recuperate in some way, take it. Mars is in your 12th. It's been in your 12th since last week. So for the next 5 weeks, your short-term priority is rest, letting go, looking within, meditating, seeking out greater meaning and purpose. Venus will join the 12th on the 24th, and so Venus is will only spend 4 weeks in your 12th, but it just puts a lot of emphasis and focus on that part of your life. And whatever you can release and let go, that will prepare you for the new beginnings, because you've got some big new beginnings in 2026, Aquarius, because you're going to have Saturn, your planet, change signs on the 13th of February. You're going to have a pretty big powerhouse solar eclipse in Aquarius on February 17th. I feel like, plus you have Pluto now. I mean, not now, but for the past 2 years, Pluto has been in Aquarius as well. So all the bigger shifts that have been happening over the past 2 years really begin to kick off in February in the new year. Pisces. So last but not least, but Jupiter is your planet Pisces, and Jupiter, as you know, is in Cancer. So this is a time, and this will be the time for the next 6 months, where it is about you. Continue to nourish the things that light you up, give you joy, be in your creativity. And I know that I talk about this with clients because the role of the fifth sign is so important, because it gets us back to who we are. It gives us the fuel of our lives, and a lot of us are burnt out, or a lot of us say, well, I'm not a creative person, Katie, I don't do art. Well, creativity is bigger than art. Creativity is when you know who you are, and or you take what is inside of you and you put it into something. So that PSA aside, it is Capricorn season. So Capricorn season means that you're beginning to come to the end of your personal calendar. Capricorn represents something called your 11th sign. So that's not quite the end of your personal year. Your personal year begins when the sun goes into Pisces on the 18th of February. In the meantime, Capricorn season for you turns you towards the world. It is a time to focus on your social network, your friends, your community. It's a time to look outward, to look towards the future, to hope and dream and plan. So on one hand, it's a very social time, or it's meant to spend more time with your community. But maybe it's also just in terms of how you think, and maybe thinking more about bigger social issues and social causes, because again, the role of the 11th is to make us aware of the world. Capricorn season is joined this year by Venus. Venus will go into Capricorn on February. Venus will go into Capricorn on December 24th. We'll also have Mars in this part of your astrology, but Mars will be there until the end of January. There will eventually be a new moon here, but that won't be until January. But really use this time to take initiative within your friends or your groups that you're involved in, to really reach out towards the vision of the future that you want to create. So it's a busy time, but more of a time that's focused on the world, maybe not necessarily home and family. Certainly it's a time of year to focus on home and family. With all that Capricorn energy, in a way, it's actually pointing towards you, because Saturn has got 7 more weeks left in Pisces. I know you are crossing the days off in your calendar. It has been a pretty big time over the last 2.5 years with Saturn and Capricorn. You've had to take a lot on. You've stepped into these new chapters of maturity, or needing to stand on your own 2 feet over the past 2 years. And with all this energy in Capricorn, it's like next 4 weeks are about you really taking the lead on something, or you're really reaching out towards something that you believe in and that you stand for. It's not a quiet time. In fact, it's a really active time, at least into the end of January. And that's helping you to take the lead in your life, and take the lead towards something that is of importance to you, importance in your community, and that is taking you towards the future that you want to create, either for yourself or for the world. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of this week, December 22nd through 28th, 2025. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that jazz to everybody who celebrates. If you're having some time off, I hope you enjoy it. We've got just a few days left in the year, and if you want to know all about 2026, the astrology 2026 and what it means for you, you can go to the link in my show notes. You can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com, and click on the link for the Astrology of 2026 webinar. So I did a big overview of the year ahead. I talked about what I think is sort of going to be our big focus for the new year. I talked about Saturn. I talked a little bit about Uranus and Neptune changing signs, and then I do a sign-by-sign guide. So empoweringastrology.com. Happy holidays, and I will see you all almost for the new year. So take care. Be well.